Good evening, everyone, and welcome you all to the second day of the International Virtual Workshop on Research Methodology and Design, jointly organized by Lavender Literary Club, Cape Comorin Trust, and Malaysian Industrial Relations and Human Resource Associations, Malaysia. So, today we are having two speakers, and our first speaker is going to be Dr. Narasimha Murthy, Assistant Professor of English, Presidency University, Bangalore, India. He has completed his PhD in South African literature after apartheid in Dravidian University, Andhra Pradesh, India. And he has many years of teaching experience, and he has nearly published 6 articles. And he has been the resource person for various virtual webinars and workshops. We are very happy to have you among us, sir. Handing over the session to you. Sir, you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am, and thank you for your kind words. And good evening, friends, and happy to be a part of Lavender Literary Club. I have been a part of this for almost since its inception because of my friend Satya, who has been very instrumental in arranging all these things. And in today's session, he has assigned me to talk on writing an abstract for a research paper. And I shall be sharing some of my ideas with you for the next 45 minutes. What is an abstract and its significance, and how to write an abstract, and some tips for abstracts, and what should we not include in an abstract. I'll be sharing some of these ideas, and I'll be happy if some of you who are more experienced and who are better versed with this, you can join me, and you are most welcome to correct me when I'm wrong, and add a few more things if I missed anything. And I would like to begin with sharing my PPT. I think my PPT is visible now. Can someone respond, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. So my topic today is how to write an abstract for a research paper. Most of us, will feel lost when it comes to writing an abstract, because the simple reason is, we will complete the article, research article. We would have done a lot of homework, groundwork, a lot of references, all these things. Now, when it comes to writing an abstract, we would be at a point of completely confusion, a state of confusion, and we will not know how to begin. That's one of the major problems, how to begin and what to begin with. So in today's session, I'll be just giving some hints and tips of how to begin and what should be there in an abstract. Basically, an abstract plays a very vital role because it explains the study quickly and succinctly to journal editors and researchers. Remember, anybody who would like to read your research article or paper, would look into the abstract first. It's a kind of marketing your research paper, marketing your article in such a way that your abstract should always prompt the readers to continue further. Remember, it's writing a compelling abstract has become much more significant today because of the online publication, because of the technical advancement that we have, and which was not so particular during the days of bound paper manuscripts, because the reach, the visibility of our article has become almost global these days. I would like to compare an abstract to a movie trailer. In the trailer, we'll just give some hints, something very significant, something that we feel very essential, a kind of making somebody to get into our paper. Basically, it offers a preview of our article paper, highlighting the key points, and also it helps the audience to take a call to decide whether should I continue to read or not. Remember, uh, a good abstract with the correct and apt keywords will give a researcher, a person who wants to read the article, person who wants to gain some knowledge about the topic, would definitely make him that it's a worth reading or not. An abstract should always make him feel that he should continue to read. That kind of you should kind of tempting him to carry on with reading that. And remember, many editorial boards, many editors, many journals, they first they screen manuscripts. They decide to take the manuscript only after they are convinced with your abstract. Abstract becomes the major factor for them to look into the complete paper. Therefore, a good abstract always catches the attention of the researcher as well as the editor. Probably most of the readers, they would read, the one and only thing that they would read is the abstract to begin with, because of we have a lot of database on abstracts available, and in many electronic searches, it is there, it will be there. Therefore, an abstract has to be kind of a marketing copy for our research paper. And a good abstract requires to have these essential points from your entire paper. Three things become very important here. First, the reason for the research. Why did you write this paper? What prompted you? What provoked you to take up this study? Why? So you should be able to make that point very clear there. So the purpose of the research. Then what are the aims? What are the goals? Rather, to make it simple, the objectives of the study. And how did you meet these objectives? How were they met in your research? Or how did you achieve these objectives? And the last one, what are your findings? What did you find? And remember, putting all these important and essential things into a paragraph of just 200 and 300 words. Just 200 and 300 words. No, not an easy task. Certainly not an easy task. At the same time, not an impossible task. No, it is difficult, but if you practice, if you follow some methodology, if you can read something about abstracts, not a very difficult one, because your paper itself will tell you how to go about. Because an abstract is basically a concise summary of a research paper or entire thesis. And remember, it is a concise summary, very brief summary of the research paper. Therefore, this is the beginning of our writing an abstract. Remember, it has to be original, not a copy paste, not an separate passage. So it should be completely, it should stand on its own. That is what I mean by fully self-contained. People who may not be able to read the entire paper, people who may not be aware anything about our research topic or our field, our area of study, they should be able to make some sense out of it. They should be able to get something out of it. They should be able to comprehend something. Therefore, one has to highlight the key content areas of your research, the purpose of your research, and the relevance and the importance of your work, and finally, the main outcomes. These four things should be highlighted in an abstract. Finally, the same thing we will document and we will support our argument, our point of view, we will justify with the supporting evidence. And remember, I am very particular about these things. Research papers in humanities and social sciences, the abstract is usually descriptive. I'll discuss it a little later, but to begin with, it describes the topic of research and its findings. That is what a descriptive abstract do. It doesn't give much information or specific information about methods and result. This I feel very important because most of us are English teachers. When we write an abstract, we will not give anything particular, nothing particular about methods and results in our descriptive abstract. Then usually there will be 5 sections in abstract. Any abstract, a good abstract, a favorable abstract should have these 5 important areas to cover with. The first one, you should begin with the reason for writing. Why are you writing this paper? Here, you have to talk about the importance of the significance of the research work that you have taken up. And at the same time, you should you should kindle the interest of the reader to go through the larger work through your abstract, kind of leading your reader into your complete paper. So this is the first important element in an abstract. The next one is the problem. When I say the problem, you might take up some issue, something, an attempt to solve an issue, an attempt to solve the problem. At the same time, you should talk about the scope of your research paper and what is your main argument or thesis, or what is your claim, what are you claiming at. So these things, you should discuss in 2 or at least in 2 sentences. And then after discussing the problem, should come to methodology. When I say methodology, what are the approaches that you use? In literature, we have different approaches. And the most popular approaches of the current, is post-colonial cultural studies. All these things, you should give a hint of what is the approach that you are taking in your paper, in your argument. And of course, give some types of evidence used in the research. You may describe, but not in detail. You have to give a hint, a kind of a touch and go. Touch and go. Finally, after methodology, you should also give some information about results. For example, what are the results of the project study? And you may also discuss the findings, but remember, mostly in a very generic state, kind of a general kind of statement, nothing specific, nothing particular. A kind of giving the reader just a hint here and there. Finally, you should talk about the implications. That means how does your paper, your research contributes to the holistic, completely the knowledge, body of knowledge on the topic? What is your contribution? So I remember here, Eliot's tradition and the individual talent. There is already a tradition established, and you are going to present your individual talent there. How you will it merge very comfortably with the available uh, knowledge, so that you have to. And also, you should talk about any practical or theoretical applications from your findings or implications for future research. If you remember, most of our PhD students, will have a separate segment for this future research. As you start doing research work, by the time you come, almost you have come to the end of your research, you will realize that what is the scope of research, further studies, kind of just a word or a two, or kind of a hint, you can give that still, to show the limitations of your study, to say that it is not a all comprehensive work. Remember, an abstract is a short summary of what your complete paper, which reports the aims and outcomes of your research. And they're very important. Abstracts are very important for selection and indexing purposes. Many databases are there which talks or which gives a lot of information about abstracts. So the reading an abstract has become very, very vital nowadays, because of the search engines that we get in plenty, abundantly. And let us talk about some words about the significance of an abstract. It serves many purposes. Multiple purposes are served with a good, well-written abstract. First thing, it gives the gist and essence of your paper or article quickly, so that the reader can decide whether he can continue reading the full paper, or is it necessary, is it worth reading? Now, kind of that, giving him a basic knowledge about your work, thesis. Then, you are kind of preparing the reader for a detailed information, analysis, and arguments in your full paper. So it's a kind of, I always tell my students in the class, it's a kind of, I have seen one peanut vendor whenever I used to travel to my native from Bangalore. Now, there will be two people. One of them will come and he'll just give two peanuts, and he will walk away. He'll just go away. And once you taste that, you cannot withhold yourself. And the next person, he knows that you're going to buy. An abstract should function like that tasting, giving him the first-hand taste. And it helps the readers to remember the key points from your paper. As we all know, keywords are essential these days. Many journals, they specify, they give you the word limit, order, all those things, So the key points, so that you'll be discussing the major findings, the major things that you're going to discuss. And remember, it helps a potential reader to determine the relevance of your paper for their own research. How can they make use of your contribution in their writing? And key findings will be known to people who may not have time to read the whole paper. So there are many people who will not be able to read, or who may not be able to, the accessibility of main paper is not given so comfortably or freely these days. So for them, abstracts will help them, whether they can really benefit from your abstract or not. Then let us come to writing an abstract. So when you look at all these points, the abstract emerges as a tool to communicate the research. What is the research? And it not only highlights the most important facets of your research, and at the same time, it attracts the maximal attention to your research. Keeping these things in mind, I have made out some steps which will help us to write a better abstract, a good abstract. So let us begin with the first point. First and foremost thing, let us write the paper first. Let us complete the article, research paper. And I have seen, some of my friends doing this. First they'll make an attempt of writing the abstract. This may, in fact, may not help them much in writing a better abstract. Instead, we can prepare an outline of the paper, complete the paper. Once you complete the paper, this will solve all the problem. Because the moment you complete, it kind of refreshing your memory. Not only that, this manuscript will automatically guide you to write the abstract. That will lead you to write the abstract, because that whole thing, becomes a concise summary of your research. Therefore, consider going through your article or research paper. And while going through your research paper, when you're reading it thoroughly, make the note down all the important sentences. In each section, it can be an introduction, the methods, results, discussion, or conclusion. From all these points, take down the key points, note down the key points, and make notes out of it. And this, when you take these notes, this will serve as an outline to write your abstract. Therefore, writing the paper first is the first step that can help you to begin with a better abstract or a good abstract. The next point is, you provide the necessary background information that leads into statement of your aim. Remember, a good abstract should always answer the question, the purpose. Why have you written? Why have you taken up this study? And this section, the first section is a very, very valuable, a very vital and significant, because the first one to three sentences, they will inform the reader. They must inform the reader the purpose of your research. What prompted you? What made you to take up this research work? Not only that, in the first 2-3 sentences, you should state the main topic. Not only stating the main topic, you should also describe the issue, the problem. And these 3 things will definitely grab the attention of the reader. Because here you're going to discuss about what was lacking in this area, in this field, what information was missing. And this, remember, this, kind of a literature review, kind of review of literature that you have taken up. And you should make him that, yes, this was something missing. And finally, it will state the aim or purpose of your work. So this will be the second step that one must take up, so that it will lead him, it will help him to continue writing this abstract. And the third thing, briefly describe your methodology. When I say methodology, some of us, people from literature background, will feel a little uncomfortable to be very clear about our methodology. But we can talk about the basic design of our study. How did we begin? What was our beginning? And how did we plan to continue? And we have completed the paper already. So we know the flow of ideas, the theory that I have used, all those things. Just state the key techniques that is being used. Most of this, they're very particular when it comes to the management studies, scientific studies, where you must talk about your methodology, you must talk about your theoretical background, theoretical framework that you have used, and the techniques that you have used in an abstract. Therefore, the moment you started analyzing all these things, your abstract becomes strong and sound. Then, what are describe the most important findings of your study? Remember, whenever somebody reads any research paper, he reads with an intention of getting something new, something that he had not analyzed, something which he should find something new. Novelty becomes very significant here. Therefore, try to maximize the amount of detail, especially when it comes to your findings, to include here. So he should be able to understand that he is going to gain something, some new knowledge about this. Therefore, try to increase the findings or important findings of your study. And finally, your conclusion should be concise and avoid overstatements. This is one of the most dangerous things that I have seen in some of our students. When they write an abstract, when they write a paper, they take things so casually, or they will be sometimes, they'll be carried away with using a lot of uh, adjectives, adjectives, and they're very fond of using adjectives. You should take care of, especially when you're generalizing things, when you're coming to conclusions. You should be very, very stringent of using your adjectives particularly. And remember, what is that the take home message? Remember, the last one or two sentences should be devoted to the kind of conclusion, and state your main finding as briefly as possible. Bring it only the gist of the gist. The cream should be presented here. You remember, the last sentence should state the theoretical or practical implications of your work. You should describe how your work has advanced the field. That means talk about your contribution. How does this paper add to the existing knowledge with giving a new dimension, adding to the present available research work? So remember always, what is your point there? That means, what are you giving there? How are you making it more strong? And how do you add to the existing knowledge? And that point, in a conclusion, almost briefly, you should be able to talk about that. Next, there are a few things that you should avoid in an abstract. Because we know what to include, let us learn what not to include and what not to. Because most of the abstracts, the moment we start writing an abstract, I see a lot of our students, they want a lengthy background information, which is not required in an abstract. You can keep that for your research paper, definitely, because even there, unnecessary background information. Most of the times, I see a lot of research papers coming there. We find sometimes, the reviewers, particularly the editorial board, they will definitely look into it. When you give too much of background information, that clearly indicates that how you are structured your research paper. That is one thing. Don't give lengthy background information. The next point is citations. You should completely avoid citations, because an abstract is not a place for citations, and it should come only in the main article or research paper. Then, if it is a scientific abstract, there should not be any routine laboratory procedures that we conduct daily, every day. That should be avoided. And too many details about the statistical methods or the software used, you should completely avoid it, unless this is the focus of your study. Otherwise, we should not talk about this statistics or numerical values or software used. These days we are all very fond of using too many softwares. And remember, any undefined abbreviations or acronyms. Actually, even if it is defined, you should avoid abbreviations and acronyms. And anything that is not discussed in the text, like it can be a result or it can be an interpretation, such things, which are not discussed in the text, that should be avoided completely in an abstract. Now, what are the other things that one must consider when you write an abstract? We have seen what should be the content of an abstract. Now let us take some more things, elements of a good abstract. So first thing,
Well,
identify. Shall I continue?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So identify the key terms, because these key terms are so significant that people will search on these keywords. In all search engines, very easily they can discover. You just type some keywords in Google, that you'll get a lot of abstracts, a lot of research article where these key terms or keywords are identified, highlighted. Therefore, these key terms or keywords, they play a very dominant role or significant role in identifying, or especially when in a search engine, that will definitely help to notice your research paper. And remember what type of abstract that you are going to write. If you remember, in the beginning itself, I was mentioning about the one type of abstract that we, social sciences and humanities, and particularly our literature background people, we usually follow a descriptive kind of type of an abstract. And remember, it depends. This type of abstract depends entirely on the journal, the guidelines of the journals that we are going to submit to, because there are usually, each and every journal has certain specific guidelines to say. So before writing an abstract, learn about them, make sure that you are following those guidelines properly. Otherwise, at the very beginning, the moment the reviewer or the editorial board takes up your abstract, they will look at it, that you will not be able to create a good impression or a better impression with your abstract. So it is significant, it's important that before thinking of sending your paper to any journal, observe those guidelines, try to follow them as much as possible, where you will have a better chance of publication. And basically, there are three types of abstracts. The first one is descriptive, the second one is informative. And the descriptive abstract, it explains the purpose, goal, methods of your research. But remember, there will be no result section here. It will not talk about any key findings or results. And it is only 100 to 200 words. So the moment I say 100 to 200 words, imagine your work, you have to concise it, you have to bring down, a kind of a churning it down to only 200 to 200 words. Not an easy thing, but if you have some methodology, if you know a few things, it's not a difficult task, but not an easy task at the same time. And an informative abstract, informative abstract is a kind of a condensed version of your paper. Most of us, we go with this informative abstract because of its, we feel very comfortable. And it gives an overview of everything in the research, including the results. We mentioned it's a kind of a miniature research paper. And definitely, it is longer than descriptive abstract. An informative abstract is longer than the descriptive abstract because descriptive abstract only gives the hints, the different subsections. In fact, it's a kind of a prose of table of contents, prose form of table of contents. But an informative abstract is a kind of a short summary of the whole article or the paper. And sometimes, this critical abstract this is the most popular kind of abstract in scientific or technical research papers. It may be required. Sometimes, the journals, scientific journals, technical journals, they demand this kind of a critical abstract. It almost same goals are accomplished, but you will relate the study or the work being discussed to the writer's own research. More than that, it may either you may critic, you may analyze, you may become little judgmental in critiquing the research design or research methods. So this is one critical abstract. It's a kind of when you are justifying a theory, when you are supporting an argument, when you're trying to find something new, when you're trying to establish a theoretical background, this kind of critical abstract becomes very essential. And some journals, as I told you, scientific and technical journals, they demand a critical abstract. So these are the three types of abstracts. I have just given you one: visual, graphical image, informative overview of the research, single paragraph to a whole page. Descriptive, it talks about the purpose, goal, and methods. Very short, very brief, 100 to 200 words. Critical, and to the writer's own research. That's what I told you. When you are trying to prove some theory, some theoretical framework, something new that you are trying to establish, critical abstract, becomes very essential or helpful for you to establish. And I'm almost coming towards the end of my presentation, and let us look at some tips for writing an abstract, because my intention is to help the researchers to write a better abstract. So let me begin, because it is a challenge. It is a challenge to condense the whole dissertation into just a couple of 100 words. This is a real challenge, because when you start the abstract, you will be completely, you'll be lost, because you'll not know. You will realize that everything is important for us. Everything looks important. Therefore, there are a few tips that I would like to share with you, how you can make your abstract better, attractive, and very catchy. First thing, list all the keywords and draft one or two sentences that summarize the central point or argument. Should be able to identify your main argument. Once you written, you can look at it, you can just rephrase, paraphrase, and identify some 2, 3, at least 5 to 10 keywords. With the help of those keywords, should be able to write one or two sentences to summarize the whole argument, the whole point. The moment you start this, this will give you a framework of your abstract structure. The moment you do start, revise the sentences to make connections. That means try to kind of a cohesion, bring in connections, and see how the argument develops, how you have developed your argument, how you have continued your, how you have further your argument or write up. No, so this is what we call a reverse outline. Do you remember in the initially I told you about the outlining of the paper. Here, reverse that kind of a reverse osmosis process. Okay. Then another useful tip, read as many abstract as possible in your field, so that you will learn some conventions of writing, especially in your discipline, because all of us will come from different backgrounds, disciplines, and each discipline expects you to follow some kind of an unwritten rules and regulations, laws. So try to read as many as abstract as possible, so that that will give you a kind of a better idea about what is a good abstract, what can be a good abstract in your field of study. And clarity and concise are the two important things when it comes to an abstract. Remember, a good abstract is always short but impactful. It should create a good impression, and make sure that every word contributes to the structure semantically as well as lexically. And it is required that your word should weigh a lot. And remember, every sentence should speak about the main point. When I say main point, the central argument. It should talk about the significance of your paper, how contributing is your paper, and it should deal with only one main point. Then focus. Now, most of the time, we tend to borrow a lot of citations, and never discuss anybody's work. Especially, should avoid discussions of others' work in your abstract, because the purpose is to report the original contributions of your research. Therefore, never bring in these things. Focus on your work, focus on your own research. And the next tip is check your formatting, because most of the time when I write a research paper, we always would like to get it published. And every thesis or dissertation or a journal, they have some specific formatting requirements. Follow them as much as possible, so that you will better your abstract when you try to follow those things. Check the guidelines. And before you start writing, when you started writing, after completing your writing, at all the three stages, make sure that you are following that guidelines, and your work should be correct, and it should be formatted properly as much as possible. Then let us have one checklist. Of an abstract. Finally, you have done a lot of work. You have invested a lot of time, effort, energy. All those things are done. So let us have a checklist. First checklist is, the word count. Remember, the moment you say an abstract, usually 100 to 200 words. Usually we tell the length of the abstract. Sometimes the necessity of an abstract depends on the length of the research paper. Now, I'll be telling my students, it should not be more than 2 to 5% of your entire document paper. Now, I will be teaching technical reports in our university. Ours is a technical university. I'll be teaching them technical report writing, technical descriptions, product description, process description, process report, progress report, a lot of technical writing that we take up. And I'll be telling them that in any technical report, abstract and executive summary is almost mandatory in our technical communication. So I always tell them, very clearly that yes, the word count. And people who have come from a background of ICSE, they're very much aware of this word count, because they will have a grid and teachers will train them to write using the grid. Therefore, a kind of a maximum of a page, 1 page. So this is a kind of a checklist, checking kind of checking oneself. Yes, have I followed this, the required length? And remember, the abstract should appear after the title page. Now I'm talking about a bigger, long or lengthy research paper and acknowledgements, and it should be before the table of contents. Kind of, for especially for thesis, dissertation, it should follow the format. The kind of, kind of litmus test that one should make on self. And have I described the methodology? The methodology that I'm talking about. And next checklist is have I summarized the most significant results? Very briefly, giving an hint about the findings. So this checklist, will help you to revise, reframe, to make it better and better. See, you have written a good one, you can make it better. And finally, you can make it best also. So remember, writing is a process. You need to revise, edit, revise. And not only that, most of the time, we fail to do this. We will not ask our friends, our colleagues to go through our abstract. So another checkpoint, have I stated all my major conclusions? And have I mentioned any significant limitations or recommendations? Because our study, begins with limitations, because we cannot cover the whole of it or everything in it. And the last point, is something very significant for me. Is my abstract clear? Can it be understood by someone without any prior knowledge of the topic? That means it should cater to a common man, a person who is not in the field, who does not know anything of the topic that I am dealing with. That is why I usually advise people. Your abstract, you can share with, if you're an English teacher, share it with an economics teacher, share it with a mathematics teacher, and ask him whether it makes any meaning for him. If it does not make complete meaning for him, that means there is some lacuna, something is missing. And you can ask for his opinion, you can take his feelings, and you can definitely revise, rectify anything that you feel that is something is missing. Therefore, it is necessary that you should ask, check with people from other disciplines, which will help you really into a larger extent. And therefore, it is good to share with your fellow professors, fellow researchers, which will help you in giving clarity to your paper as well as abstract. And probably this will be my last slide. And before you have your questions, let me thank you for your patient listening and thank the Lavender Literary Club, my friend Satya, for giving me this opportunity. Yeah. And now I'll stop presenting.
Thank you, sir. Is there any questions from the participant side? Anybody have any queries to ask?
Not only queries, ma, you can come out with your views, or if you think that I have missed something, please feel free to add.
Uh, Excuse me, sir. It's Mala Acharya from Odisha,
Please, ma'am.
Bhubaneswar. Sir, it was really very informative. I'm really grateful. I learned a lot about the abstract areas, whatever you spoke. Sir, will the slide be shared with us?
I certainly don't mind, ma'am. I'll be happy to share if it is of some use to you.
Okay,
Next
sir.
slide.
That will be really helpful if your slide will be shared with us.
Ma'am, I'll be happy to share, ma'am.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. It was really very informative. I learned a lot about it. Thank you so much,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you.
Hello, sir. Namaskar. Sir, it was very nice lecture. Myself, Dr. Yamika from Rohtak, Haryana. It was really a nice lecture.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir, please.
Sir, I am Sheikh Najmul Mohammed from West Bengal. So, actually, thank you very much, sir. You have covered all the certain points that we need to follow when writing a written abstract. But one thing that I want to know, sir, what about the language? Whether the language should be very simple, meaningful, or should be very standard way of presentation. If you please focus on the aspects of language, it will be better for me. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, that's a very good observation according to me, Mohammed Saab. Because when I say language, first thing, language should be simple. Remember, writing or using simple language is more difficult than making it more complicated. The purpose, I told you, I have mentioned during my presentation, a person who does not know anything about this area of study should be able to understand. Therefore, you should avoid all sorts of technical jargon in an abstract. But remember, at the same time, we cannot do that completely, because when you are doing research, when you are focusing your methodology or your approach is post-colonial, you have to bring in some jargon. But remember that it should not sound alien. Your language should be simple, straightforward, because when the language becomes simple and clarity, you can achieve. Therefore, I wish that the language of abstract should be as simple as possible. Nothing high sounding words and phrases, because it makes no sense according to me. Let us use simple language. That's my takeaway. That's my view here.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Sir, I have a question, sir.
Please, ma'am.
Sir, what's the tense we have used in writing abstract? It's past tense or present tense?
Yes, it depends. It depends on your. Remember, abstract is written after you complete the paper. Therefore, when you talk about your findings, when you talk about your contributions, you have to use simple past tense only. And remember, we begin the first thing, when you are talking about general things, it is simple present tense. A judicious use of simple present tense and simple past tense will be a better grammatical elements that you can use, ma'am. And we may not be able to use future tense because we write our paper only after completing our study, research, or project work. And use as much as possible simple present tense. And when you're talking, come to conclusion, when you're talking about your findings and your implications, you can definitely use simple past tense. I
Thank
think
you, sir.
I've answered the question, ma'am.
Sir, thank you, sir. Sir, how to write the keywords in the abstract, sir?
Yes, ma'am, you know, see, if I remember the tips when I started giving the tips of writing an abstract, I gave about a reversing of outline method, reversing outline method. So when you are able to identify the key sentences of your contribution, you take whatever that is significant for you and whatever that your paper, when you revise your paper, you'll be able to get the main idea. For example, I would like to write a paper on the importance of writing an abstract. If I convert my talk into a lecture into a paper, I would definitely say abstract, keywords. So these are my takeaways from my talk, and types of abstract like descriptive, or again significance, purpose, objective. So again, I have to come to limit my keywords. Usually, our journals will not expect more than 5 key words. They are the points that you have discussed completely in your article or research paper. That is how we will identify the key words or key points. And there is another question here I seen in the chat box.
Sir, whether I have to take the keywords from the contribution or from the whole article?
If you from the whole article only, you have to take two words from the general, and 3 to 4 words, from your contribution only. What is your point of argument? What is that you are contributing? The 3 words in a minimum should be from that.
Thank you, sir.
There is another question. I'm not able to find that now. Somebody, I'm not finding it in the chat. Is not available, they say. I just read that passing, but I could not concentrate much on it. Yeah, it's 7. I think if there are no questions, Risha ma'am.
Any more queries?
And the last word, and I would like to say 1, 2, 3 words. Yeah, thank you, friends, for allowing me, for bearing me for the last 56 minutes to be specific. And I would like to thank Risha ma'am and the organizers bringing you all together here and giving me an opportunity. Thank you very much.